Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my vlogs. I actually really enjoy doing this vlog style. I've actually listened to a couple of these things back myself, and I actually kind of enjoy them. I think that they're fun. They're a little different for me, but I do enjoy them, and hopefully you guys do as well. But in this video, I want to talk about spinnerbait. Spinnerbait. And I don't know if spinnerbait is a term that I coined because I've spoken about it several times, or whether I appropriated this term from somewhere else. But nevertheless, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about spinnerbait. And for those that don't know what spinnerbait is, here's the best way to think about it. If you are, or were back in the day, a kid, young adult, whatever, going into a bookstore and you were going over to buy some comics, you would oftentimes find those comics on a rack that spun. There's your spinner. The bait is the words that are contained on the cover of that comic. Right? So on the cover of that comic, you would see things like in the blazing battle of, a close call. You would see things like your favorite character dies, or your favorite character lives, or overcomes a battle. It would basically be, all of this sensational language that would be combined with some fantastic artwork that was really designed to capture your attention. If you were coming into that bookstore and you only had, $2 in your pocket or less, right, depending upon how back in the day we're talking about, there needed to be something in that cover that would entice you to spend those dollars or cents on that specific book versus another. And so the artists and the editors and the writers would have these wonderful covers, and they would have this language that was designed to basically entice you and to basically say, you need this book right here because this thing is going to happen, right? If you look at Amazing Spider-Man number 40, Spidey saves the day. If you are a Spider-Man fan or even not a Spider-Man fan, you're like, what? He saved the day. How did he save the day? I have to buy this book to figure out what Spider-Man did. And it was combined with Spider-Man and Green Goblin on the cover. It's a pretty cool cover, and it's designed to entice you to take it off the spinner rack, to walk over to the counter and to put your money down on the counter and buy that book and take it home and read it. That's what his spinnerbait historically has been. If you look at Amazing Spider-Man number 110, the newest Marvel superstar, Birth of the Gibbon. First, the Gibbon is not a superstar. As much as we joke about him on this channel, he is not a superstar. But it basically, these headlines tell you a couple of things. It basically tells you that this is essentially an introduction, the first appearance of a character, and the character's name is the Gibbon, and you know that the Gibbon is actually in the book, right? Because it's saying the newest superstar, Birth of the Gibbon. So you're like, the Gibbon must be in this book, right? There's no doubt about it. And to be honest with you, as a kid, as a young adult, I always knew that this language was designed to be sensational. I knew that it was designed to be over the top and exaggerated to entice me. I knew that. And I think many of you probably do as well, right? Back in the day when you saw this stuff, you were like, I don't know if it's going to be the greatest story I've ever read of my life versus being a good story to read. I don't think that we were surprised about some of the language that was being used. And at the end of the day, you kind of sort of, I think, knew what you were getting with that purchase, right? Maybe it wasn't the best ever, but it was pretty good, and you were entertained and you felt like you got your money's worth. I don't think that these things were truly misleading, right? And so spinnerbait is, to some degree or another, very similar to like clickbait. Clickbait on like YouTube and other, streaming services is really designed to some degree or another to entice you to click on a link. And sometimes what happens with like clickbait, for example, that's where I kind of got the term from, clickbait, spinnerbait. With clickbait, sometimes what happens is the headline that is used to entice you to click on that link oftentimes has absolutely nothing to do with the actual video that is shown. And I think that that's why people have such a problem with clickbait. And if you look at a lot of the titles that I use on my videos, they are actually very descriptive of what's actually in the video, right? If I'm like, we are going to talk about Avengers Endgame, we actually talk about Avengers Endgame. We don't bring you on thinking you're going to hear about Avengers Endgame, and we're actually talking about, I don't know, Cobra Kai, right? That doesn't really happen. Right? It's typically the headline should be related to the subject. Now, if you talk about some other things in addition to that, that's cool. But the headline should be related to the actual video. And what I see happening is I think that the new Spinnerbait has more in common with clickbait than I would like to see. And what I mean by that is that if you look at some of what is happening in the industry right now, a lot of times what you're seeing are really fantastic covers featuring some amazing art that has absolutely nothing to do with the book inside. And I personally struggle with that. If the cover is designed to be an introduction for the book, I think that the cover should tell you what's in the book. And if the cover is showing a character or a scene or something like that that is not found in the book, I personally think that that's misleading. And I honestly see it happening a lot with the variants. And I think you guys are probably going to be able to cite a lot more examples than what I'm going to cite in this video. And I actually want to hear some of these things. But I am starting to see this trend where you have these variants that are coming out, and the variants feature some wonderful, wonderful Spinnerbait artwork that is designed to entice you to pick it up, to buy it, and to read it. But what's happening is that cover art has absolutely nothing to do with what's happening in the actual book. And I want to cite just one example. ASM, shocker, right? Shocker that I'm talking about ASM, but ASM 799 features some fantastic cover art. Oh my goodness. When I saw this cover art, I immediately went to the site and bought it because I was like, this is gorgeous. I bought it and I did not regret it. I still don't regret it, right? But if you look at the cover of this book, it features some great cover art featuring the Green Goblin. Now, here's the thing. The Green Goblin is not in 799. The Green Goblin is nowhere to be found in 799. The Green Goblin is, I think, in 798, but the Green Goblin is not in 799. So if you bought that book thinking you were going to get a story about the Green Goblin, you were misled. And I see this trend, and this was a variant that I picked up, a virgin variant. I see this trend happening with these variant books more and more, where the cover art is fantastic, but has zero to do with what actually happens inside the book. And I think that that's wrong. And I think that this happens for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that, Marvel or whoever may have a deadline that is looming, and they have an artist who has not turned in their artwork, and they have a book that needs to go to print so that they can, distribute the book and make their money, right? And they go to a drawer or a file cabinet or whatever it is, and they pull out, or a file on their computer and pull out some artwork that they have on file from a talented artist that is somewhat related to that title, that character, that book, and they slap it on there and they call it good. They have a deadline to meet, they have some artwork on file, and they purpose that artwork. And I think that could potentially be misleading for people that are expecting the cover to be tied to the interior. And I don't know if people are disappointed by that. I don't even know if it's a big deal. And maybe that's one of the things that you guys are going to comment is, maybe you have no problem with that. Maybe you don't see an issue, and that's perfectly fine. This is not about saying you're right or you're wrong. It's about, here's an observation that I've had, and I'm curious what you guys think. I'm curious. Do you think that the cover should be related to the interior, or does it not matter? Do you not care, right? You may say, I just want nice artwork and a good story, and the cover and the interior don't necessarily have to match. And others may say, I think that they should. So I'm curious what you guys think about that. So in the comment section, drop your comments in there. But I think, I personally don't have a problem with Spinnerbait. I think Spinnerbait is fine, especially when you know that it's Spinnerbait going into it, right? Going back to some of my earlier examples, the gibbon is not Marvel newest superstar, right? He just recently returned, but he is not, nor will he ever probably be a superstar, much to my chagrin. But you kind of know that, and there's no harm in having a little fun, especially when the Gibbon is actually in the book, right? It's not like Marvel's newest superstar, introducing the Gibbon, and the Gibbon's not even in the book at all. That would be misleading. But I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think about this. I personally am okay with spinnerbait. As long as the spinnerbait is not designed to mislead people, I think that there's nothing wrong with that. And while I'm on this topic, there's one other thing I want to talk about. One thing that I kind of miss from comics, and it might just me being nostalgic, and the fact that I'm reading a bunch of old stuff now. One thing that I kind of miss is the editor or the writer inside of a comic actually talking to the reader. Stan the Man. Stan the Man used to insert all kinds of comments to give you a little bit of backstory on a character, or to say, hey, you remember that from last ish, or you remember that from, issue 40 or whatever it is, Stan the Man, right? I enjoyed that element in a comic, and I don't see that anymore. Maybe it's because I'm not paying attention, or maybe it's there and I'm just not seeing it, or maybe it's just not there. But I kind of liked that element. I always thought it was a fun way for the editor or the writer to have a little fun with the reader, right? And it was tied to the story, but it wasn't. I just always really liked that. And again, it's just one of those things, as I'm sitting here recording this thing, I'm kind of thinking about in my head. And again, I'm curious what you guys might think about that. Did you like that element? Did you not like that element? Would you like to see that returned? So much of this is all about just us having a conversation. You know what I'm saying? So there's no wrong answer. Feel free to disagree with me, agree with me. It's all good. As long as we're civil and having some fun, nothing else really matters. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts. Spinnerbait is back. Spinnerbait might be misleading. Curious what you guys think about this. As always, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I definitely want to encourage you to do so that you can stay abreast of all the content that I release on a weekly basis. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so at reggiecollects@gmail.com and Reggie Collects on Instagram. I look forward to hearing from you guys very soon. Take care.